So for this experiment, we are testing to see how liquids flow in and out of a cell through diffusion and osmosis. So here we have our eggs that have been soaking in vinegar. Now, as you can see, the shell has been eroded by the vinegar, and as a result, we now have squishy membranes on the outside of our egg cells. So we're going to be subjecting these to different liquids and determining how the mass changes. So here are our samples. We're going to leave them for a couple of days, and then we'll be able to test what's going on. Now, if you take a look at our syrup examples here, you'll notice the 3 eggs in syrup are actually floating. So all the other eggs are sitting at the bottom of their containers. However, our syrup eggs are floating on top. So obviously, the syrup is more dense than the egg, and that's why those ones are floating. So I'll leave these for a couple days and come back and check out the masses afterwards. So taking a look at our eggs after they've had a chance to absorb or release water, when we take a look at our water, you can see that it's got a little bit larger. The cola, obviously due to the color change, it's turned to dark brown. It has absorbed some of the liquid, and again you can see it's got a little bit larger. Our electrolyte, orange color, so obviously it absorbed some of our orange colored electrolyte. It has swollen up significantly. So when we take a look at these ones, especially pull out our electrolyte, it is much firmer and larger than it started off. So when I squeeze on it, it requires a little bit more force to squeeze it than it did before we put it in the electrolyte to absorb. Same thing when we take a look at the cola here. Get that out. So again, fairly firm, and it has got larger as a result. Now, for our salt water, it always depends on what concentration of salt water. In this case, it's still fairly firm to the touch, and we can see that the size hasn't changed too dramatically, but it has probably increased a bit. The oil one is always interesting. Oil does not react at all, so this should be fairly isotonic, and you can see it's firm, not as firm as the other ones, much easier to squish this one. But the most interesting one I always find is the syrup one. So the syrup, if you take a look from above, you can see this is squished. All right. So when I touch it, it's actually very firm, much harder, and that's because all of the water has gone out. So it's got this weird loose skin like material on top, but then I can feel that yolk on the inside. So if we try to pick this one up, and it's slimy because it's still covered in syrup, you can see that in this case it has definitely lost material. There's a lot of loose, but it does have kind of a firm core, which is the yolk in the middle. On the other ones, it feels very consistent, but this one we can definitely feel bits inside of the whole thing.